All right, we're live at Consensus 2026 with Hudson Jameson, head of ecosystem from CertiK, and what I would consider an OG in the industry, now working for one of the most prominent auditing smart contract firms. And you guys do a lot more, which I'd love to dive into today. Maybe we could start with a little bit, just briefly, on your history and why you wanted to join CertiK and why you found it important. And then we can dive into CertiK.
Sure. So I've been in the blockchain space for over a decade, working at places like the Ethereum Foundation and Polygon labs, a lot of stuff dealing with like client and protocol work, client and protocol coordination, community work, things like that. And I left Polygon at the end of last year, just looking for something new and something different. And I had already been in the security space helping as a co-founder for SEAL, the Security Alliance. And so CertiK was something I was interested in as a challenge. I thought that it would be really interesting just to see what working at like a real big security company was like. And I was lucky enough to get the job as head of ecosystem. So my job is to make connections between Web3 native communities and CertiK so that we can have better relationships with our Web3 clients.
Definitely. Well, everyone needs security, especially in crypto. You know, being a younger industry, there's still events going on that are security issues and DeFi hacks and such. And then with the inclusion of AI, people are developing faster and maybe missing things, and also attackers are using AI to penetrate into smart contracts and dApps more. How, over the last year, with the growth of people using AI on both sides, is that affecting CertiK and auditing?
So yeah, we're actually embracing AI at CertiK. We have manual audits. That's our main bread and butter, is our smart contract audits. But we also recently developed and released in beta what's called our AI Auditor. So basically, if you're a developer, you can use the AI Auditor to put your code in and run it through AI to talk about, kind of as a first pass, what the bugs are in your code. So it's not going to replace manual auditing. Like, manual auditing is still like what you need to be doing if you really want to secure your contracts. But the AI Auditor is a good way to do a first pass and see the initial bugs and issues that are in your smart contracts.
Definitely. I feel like manual is completely necessary still. Maybe that will change in who knows how long as AI gets better. But having that combination of the AI to, you know, find that missing semicolon or that one flaw. There's a lot of trickery in the way things are designed, and especially with these DeFi hacks, it seems like, you know, people find workarounds to, like, with the other integrations of another app that you might not be looking at their code, they're integrating with you, they get hacked, all of a sudden they're taking over your DeFi app, right?
Yeah, that was recently with the Kelp DAO incident. There was, you know, layer 0 was the like entry point for the vulnerability that took down Kelp DAO, which then affected Aave and all these other protocols. So you never know what one thing is going to affect another. And yeah, it's all nuanced. It's all super nuanced, the way that these attacks happen and the way that these contracts and infrastructure can be vulnerable. And that's why CertiK's around.
Definitely. And with the growth in institutional interest into DeFi and tokenization of real-world assets, as that TVL grows, I'm guessing that more institutions are looking at the security side as well.
Yes. And CertiK offers penetration testing and compliance solutions. Man, I sound like a robotic ad right now, but honestly, we really are like kick-ass in those departments. Yeah. Like, we do really, really good work with our institutional clients, and we really want to protect the ecosystem. And you do that beyond smart contracts, and you do that beyond code. There's, you know, operational security, OpSec, that you need to be watching out for and applying to your everyday life and every day that you go to work. So we also focus on those parts very heavily because that's what's needed.
Definitely, and that's a good point about the OpSec. You and me both being in the industry for over 10 years. Personal OpSec, of course, is important as well. And we've seen these wrench attacks or just phishing attacks, especially with AI, even deep fakes now. There's a million ways they can try and get you.
Yeah, there's a million ways for sure. And like a lot of your information online is like public knowledge. And because everybody overshares, you can just like see yourself posting something on Instagram and like figure out where you're located, and then people can go there and find you, and all these crazy things people online can do just with like the direction of the sun in a photo and stuff like that.
I did see that video.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, pinpoint in 30 minutes, pinpointed anywhere you're live streaming in the US, for example, just based on the CVS in the background, we know what street you're on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and if they know you were just posting about crypto and you have it on your person, they'll be there with a wrench in a few minutes.
Yeah, the wrench attacks are pretty scary. I know that like France has been a big place where that's happening, but it's also happening in the US, these like kidnapping attempts. And the interesting thing, this is something that people don't talk about, how this happens. The kidnappers are just hired goons where there's like a mastermind somewhere else that's directing them how to go and where to get these people and kidnap them. And then they just threaten them until they give them their crypto, and then they go to the mastermind like remotely and get the mastermind to get the crypto off the devices. So it's like, you know, not just an operation where there's just some petty thieves going and trying to get this stuff. It's like a bigger operation.
Definitely. There's always that kingpin that's doing the chain analysis and whatever, pinpointing, you know, where your assets are. Back to institutions. What based on your short time at CertiK and working on the security side, what do you see as their interest in DeFi right now versus other tokenization of other platforms bringing in traditional financial assets? Yeah.
So as far as tokenization of assets goes, that's a huge thing right now, like a huge thing, RWAs. And I think that when people think about real world assets, the connection that you have between a real world asset and a digital asset needs a huge layer of security because of spoofing and because of like other malicious things that can happen to them. So yeah, it's definitely something right now that we're looking heavily at and that we help out different clients of ours with.
For sure. If you had been working at CertiK on the security side, I know you mentioned you did before, but say you spent half a decade working on that, what kind of rating out of 10 would you give it right now, and how secure DeFi and decentralized assets and dApps are?
So very interestingly, Mitchell, who is the CEO of Immunefi, which is a bug bounty program, he ran some numbers and actually kind of proved through the amount of like hacks that have been recorded and the bug bounty programs and things like that we're more secure today than we were 5 years ago. It was really interesting to see the numbers and see the decrease in the number of attacks, even if there's an increase in the volume of money that is being stolen. So, and also the fact that a lot of these attacks that are happening are infrastructure level. They're not at the smart contract level anymore. The stuff that's the hundreds of millions of dollars or private key leaks or multi-sig compromises or things like that. So when you think of security, it's no longer just smart contract security. It's also everything involved in operational security and infrastructure.
Definitely. And I think when you look at CertiK on the surface, if for the crypto users that have seen it pass by on X or on socials, they think of CertiK as, oh, it's a smart contract auditing. But a smart contract is only as secure as you think it is.
Yeah.
But there's so many other faucets, especially with hundreds of millions or billions under control. Working with those companies that have billions, exchanges as well, not just dApps. There's all those other faucets. Does CertiK work to try and prevent DPRK from getting another billion in Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer operational security solutions, so teaching companies what to do in the event that they're either prevention and how to react if they're getting hacked. Obviously, we will get calls if someone's been hacked and been okay, look, what do we do? And so we're there for them to figure out what they need to be doing. And so there's a lot that goes into training a company and the ways of the best operational security you can do. Definitely,
it's a good point. Say for example, you are doing OpSec with a big exchange, and you can never have 100% certainty that it's you're protected from everything. You do the best that you can. Something happens and they've lost 200 million. What does CertiK do in that moment and moving forward to stop any further funds from being siphoned and to get the money back?
Yeah, so there's number one, we have constant monitoring, chain monitoring, so we can try to catch that as it's happening. And then after it happens, if it's a client of ours, we work with the client to see what the damage is, to mitigate any further damage by locking down either the network system, the computers that might be involved in this, and try to come up with a triage plan to understand what's happening and what we can do to stop it in its tracks. As far as asset recovery goes, that is a very sticky topic. There's, right now, even with Kelp DAO, like I mentioned earlier, Aave's Security Council froze some of the funds. And we've also heard of Circle and Tether, who are stablecoin providers, freezing funds. And that's one way that funds get recovered. Others are negotiating with the hackers. If it's DPRK, that usually will never work. But with others, sometimes you can be like, hey, you can keep a certain amount bounty if you give the rest of it back, like 10%.
Yeah.
And some of the time, because they're so fearful of having all this money and how to get it out, they actually do that and they keep the 10% bounty or whatever and they give the rest back.
Yeah.
So, there's many different ways to handle those type of situations. But at the end of the day, I think having a response plan and knowing what to do if something happens is almost as important as having a plan for prevention.
Definitely. And in terms of fund managers, hedge funds that have say they have a few hundred million in fiat, they're used to that and they know about the protections of bank or the insurance there. And then they start getting into, okay, we're going to hold this in stable coins, whether it's USDC or USDT, and go from there and start deploying our strategy into crypto. How would you assure them of, now that you're moving into this different asset, I don't have a smart contract, but I have hundreds of millions sitting in crypto now?
Yes, so there's definitely some things that you need to do if you're holding that much money in crypto. So there's actually companies that are custody platforms that are built for this, like Coinbase has one, I believe Kraken has one. And generally the go-to, there's even banks now, I believe Fidelity is starting to have something for that as well.
That's nice.
So usually you want to be using platforms like that.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to self-custody that much money, you need to have an top industry team, in-house handling that, honestly, because that's way too much money to just have on a multi-sig or protected by just a basic team that doesn't have years and years of experience and a huge in-house team of security experts.
Definitely. There was you guys have put out many reports. There was a recent report, I believe on the AML. Can you talk about you guys' recent reports and what you've been focused on the most in the first half of 2026?
Yes. So we released a report on anti-money laundering, AML, and we got really good feedback on that report, actually. It was, I think it was across a few different media outlets picked it up. And these AML laws are really are different all around the world.
Yeah.
And it's hard to wrap your head around how, as a provider, as a service provider, as a client, how do I abide by all of these AML laws? So we kind of just broke down in the article some of how that works, yeah, I like the article a lot. I thought it was great.
Can you touch on if America is planning to be, at least, and what Trump says, the leader in cryptocurrency, although there's a lot of companies that went offshore or international versus US startups. Does CertiK help? Is there something different that you have to do, whether you're helping international or US based startup?
There's definitely different things to take into consideration with the local laws and jurisdictions, especially if we're helping a client that's going worldwide versus helping just their local jurisdiction. There's definitely laws and stuff to follow. That's not exactly my forte. I'm not deep into that area, but I do know that the consequences for not following the laws and regulations can be very, very tragic for these companies.
Yeah, definitely. What's the number one thing that you're looking forward to in general in crypto and the growth of it more into the mainstream in the next 12 months?
Privacy. I am a huge privacy advocate, and I believe that we are doing a lot on a lot of different angles, but especially in Ethereum to make privacy native at the L1 layer. And I think that that is really exciting. I also am excited about Zcash and a lot of the momentum that it's getting. I was involved in Zcash as a volunteer for their building their grants program years and years ago. And so to see it flourish now and the grants program still going and them working so hard on all the Zcash things really brightens my day.
That's really exciting, and I completely agree. I've seen it in the last 12 months. The privacy narrative in the good kinds of privacy, not just like the cypherpunk, like anti-everything, libertarian privacy, but like compliant privacy has become the new thing. Especially as institutions come in, they realize we don't want to trade hundreds of millions on a fully transparent chain where everybody can see exactly what moves we're making.
Yeah. There's definitely a trade-off there where it's like we want private transactions, but we also want to be compliant.
Yeah.
And so that's the big trend right now, I feel like, with blockchains and alternative layer ones is like, how can we do compliance and privacy? And that's a really hard needle to thread.
Super cool. I appreciate all your insights. Would love to have you back on the show in the studio as the industry continues to grow. And what's the best way to follow your work as well as CertiK?
So you can follow me on X and LinkedIn at Hudson Jameson, and you can follow CertiK at CertiK on X and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you.